In a faraway village called Asala, there lived a woman named Ashabi, a beautiful and hardworking food seller whose cooking was known across the entire village. People didn't just like her food, they loved it deeply, and many traveled from nearby places just to taste her meals. Every day, Ashabi would wake up early, set up her small stall, and prepare dishes filled with rich flavors and warmth. Because of this, everyone began to call her Ashabi the cook. But it wasn't just her food that made people admire her. It was her kindness. She treated everyone with respect, always smiling, always welcoming. Despite her gentle nature, Ashabi's life had not been easy. Years earlier, while she was pregnant with her daughter Kimy, something tragic happened. Her husband passed away suddenly, leaving her completely alone. From that moment, Ashabi had to raise her child by herself, carrying both the pain of loss and the responsibility of motherhood. Still, she never gave up. Every single day, she worked tirelessly, cooking and selling food, just to make sure Kimy had a better life. She loved her daughter more than anything, and the villagers could see it. They respected her strength and admired how she never complained, even when life was difficult. To them, Ashabi was not just a cook. She was a symbol of resilience. Ashabi and her daughter Kimy shared a bond that went beyond just family. They were like best friends, always together, always supporting each other. Their small home was filled with simple happiness, laughter, and love. Even though they didn't have much, they had each other, and for a while, that was enough. But one day, something terrible happened in the village of Asala, something that would change everything forever. A young man, strong, healthy, and well-known in the village, came to Ashabi's food stall like he had done many times before. He greeted her, smiled, and enjoyed his meal without any sign that anything was wrong. It seemed like just another normal day. But later that same day, the young man suddenly became very ill. His family rushed to his side, trying everything they could to help him, but his condition worsened quickly. Within moments, he began to vomit blood. Panic filled the room, and fear spread like wildfire. In Asala, such a thing meant only one thing: poison. Before anyone could understand what was truly happening, the young man died. The news spread rapidly across the village, and whispers began to rise from every corner. Without evidence, without questions, the villagers jumped to one conclusion: Ashabi had poisoned him. Shock turned into anger, and anger quickly turned into rage. The same people who once loved her food and praised her kindness now looked at her with hatred in their eyes. They didn't stop to think. They didn't try to find the truth. They only wanted someone to blame. A large crowd gathered at Ashabi's stall, shouting accusations. "Murderer!" they yelled. "Poisoner!" Their voices were loud, filled with fury and fear. Ashabi tried to speak, tried to defend herself, but no one was willing to listen. The truth no longer mattered. In that moment, the crowd had already decided her fate. And once a crowd is consumed by anger, it becomes something dangerous, something uncontrollable. One person picked up a stone, then another followed, and before anyone could stop it, chaos broke out. Stones were thrown again and again, each one filled with blind rage. Ashabi fell to the ground, helpless, unable to escape the violence. The same place where she had fed the village with love became the place where her life ended. Within moments, she was gone, killed not by truth, but by misunderstanding. Amid all this horror stood a small figure, Kimy. Only 10 years old, she watched everything happen before her eyes. She cried out, begging the villagers to stop, but her voice was lost in the noise. No one listened. No one cared. In a single moment, she lost the only person she had in the world. Her mother, the woman who had sacrificed everything for her, was gone forever. The village that once felt like home now felt cold and cruel. Ashabi, the kind and loving woman, was reduced to nothing but a memory in the hearts of those who had once admired her. And Kimy, she was left completely alone, standing in the silence that followed the chaos, her world shattered beyond repair. The witch slowly placed the small calabash into Kimy's trembling hands, her cold voice cutting through the silence. If you refuse, child, you will face the same fate as your mother. Don't be foolish like she was." Kimy stared down at the object, her fingers tightening around it as fear crawled through her chest. The witch's words echoed again and again in her mind, refusing to leave. Was this truly her only way to survive? The only way to escape the curse that had destroyed her mother? Without waiting for an answer, the witch turned and began to walk away, her figure slowly dissolving into the darkness like she had never been there at all. "Think carefully, Kimy," her voice whispered from the shadows. "Your life depends on it." Kimy stood frozen, alone in the night, the weight of the calabash feeling heavier than it should. Her thoughts raced wildly, fear, confusion, anger, all tangled together. Could she really do what the witch had said? Could she cross that line, knowing what it meant? That night, sleep never came. She paced her small room, staring again and again at the calabash. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother, Ashabi, standing strong, refusing the witches, and paying the ultimate price. Kimy didn't want to follow that same path, but the thought of doing something so disturbing made her stomach twist with disgust. She felt trapped, as if every choice led to darkness. As the first light of dawn slowly crept into her room, Kimy made a decision, one she never thought she would make. She couldn't continue living like this, rejected, alone, with the whispers of the villagers chasing her every step. If this was truly the only way to survive, then she would do it. That morning, Kimy went to her stall like always. She prepared the food carefully, her hands steady on the outside, but shaking inside. Then, with hesitation, she did what the witch had told her. Her breath caught as she followed the instructions, forcing herself not to think about what she was doing. After that, she opened the calabash and sprinkled a small amount of the dark substance into the pot. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest as she stirred, fear and shame mixing together inside her. She prayed silently that no one would ever discover the truth. When she opened her stall that day, her mind was filled with anxiety. Would anyone come? Would they notice something strange? Would everything go wrong? But what happened next shocked her. Slowly, people began to approach. First a few, then more, and then even more. They gathered around her stall, curious at first, then eager. Kimy watched in disbelief as they tasted her food, and smiled, real smiles. "This is incredible," one man said, licking his fingers. "I haven't eaten something this good in years," another added. The same villagers who once avoided her were now standing in line. By the end of the day, everything was gone. Every pot empty, every plate finished. For the first time since returning to Asala, Kimy felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Kimy's stall became the busiest place in the entire village. People from nearby towns began traveling just to taste her food. Her name spread quickly, growing beyond Asala itself. Within a year, she became the most successful food seller in the region. With the money she earned, she built a large and beautiful house, one that stood out from everything around it. People stopped just to look at it, amazed at how far she had come. It was a symbol of her success, but also of something darker. Despite her growing business, Kimy never allowed anyone else to cook. She hired workers to help serve and clean, but the cooking was always done by her alone. She guarded her secret carefully, knowing that if anyone discovered the truth, everything could fall apart. While her fame continued to rise, not everyone was happy. The women in the village began to whisper among themselves, watching how their husbands admired Kimy and constantly visited her stall. Jealousy began to grow. "Something is not right," they said. "No one rises this fast without something behind it." Rumors spread that Kimy was using some kind of power, something unnatural. But Kimy ignored it all. She focused only on her success. She had everything she once dreamed of: money, respect, a thriving business. And yet, deep inside, something didn't feel right. There was a shadow in her heart, a quiet uneasiness she could never fully escape. One cold and silent night, as Kimy sat alone in her grand house, lost in her thoughts, a sudden chill filled the room. The air grew heavy. The wind howled outside, and the lights flickered violently. Before she could even stand, a familiar figure appeared in the corner of the room. The witch. Kimy's heart dropped instantly. That same crooked smile, those same glowing eyes. She had tried to forget, tried to convince herself that it was all over, but deep down, she always knew this moment would come. "Kimy," the witch's voice echoed, sending shivers through her entire body. "It's time." Kimy swallowed hard, fear tightening around her throat. "Time for what?" she asked, though her heart already knew the answer. The witch stepped closer, her smile widening. "You didn't think your success came without a price, did you? We gave you wealth, power, and fame. Now, it's time to pay us back." Kimy's voice trembled. "But I did everything you asked. Isn't that enough?" The witch slowly shook her head. "That was only the beginning," she said coldly. "Now we need something greater." Kimy's breath stopped as the witch's eyes darkened. "We need your womb." Kimy gasped, her entire body going cold. "My womb?" The witch nodded slowly, her expression now serious and unyielding. "If you want to keep everything you have, you must give up the chance to ever have children. No family, no future of your own. That is the price of your success." Kimy's heart pounded violently. This was more than she ever imagined. All her dreams, of love, of family, of a normal life, stood on one side, and everything she had built stood on the other. And now, she had to choose. Kimy looked around her large, beautiful house, but for the first time, it didn't feel like success. It felt empty. The walls that once made her proud now echoed with silence. She had always imagined that one day, this house would be filled with laughter, with children running through the halls, with a family she could call her own. But now, standing in front of the witch, that dream felt like it was slipping away. "No," Kimy said, shaking her head firmly, her voice trembling but determined. "I can't do that. I want children. I want a family. I worked hard for everything I have, but I won't give up my future for it." The witch's smile slowly faded, replaced by a cold, lifeless stare that sent a chill down Kimy's spine. "You think you can refuse us?" the witch asked, her voice low and dangerous. "Do you really believe you can walk away from the bargain you made?" Kimy's hands trembled as fear crept into her chest, but she didn't step back. The witch's eyes darkened as she continued. "If you don't give us your womb, you will lose everything. Your wealth, your fame, your house, all of it will vanish." Kimy swallowed hard. The thought of losing everything she had built terrified her, but the idea of never becoming a mother was even more painful. She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her strength, then opened them again with resolve. "No," she said, louder this time. "I won't do it. I'll find another way." The witch's face twisted with anger, her calm mask finally breaking. "There is no other way," she hissed. "If you refuse, the consequences will be worse than anything you can imagine." But Kimy stood her ground, her heart racing, but her decision unshaken. "Then I'll face whatever comes," she said. "But I won't give up my future." The witch stared at her for a long moment, her eyes burning with fury, before finally speaking in a cold, sharp tone. "Very well, you've made your choice, but remember this, Kimy, everything has a price, and yours will be paid in full." And just like that, she disappeared, leaving Kimy alone in the darkness, her heart pounding with fear of what was to come. The very next morning, something strange swept through the village of Asala. A cold, unnatural wind blew through the streets, rattling doors and shaking windows as if something unseen was moving among them. But the real change happened inside Kimy's house. The wind had damaged part of her secret room, the place where she prepared her food and performed the dark ritual. A small hole had formed in the wall, just enough for someone outside to see through. And unfortunately for Kimy, someone did. One of the village women, already suspicious of Kimy's sudden success, noticed the gap. Curiosity pulled her closer. Slowly, she crouched down and peeked through the hole. What she saw made her blood run cold. Inside, Kimy was preparing her food as usual, But then the woman watched in horror as Kimy followed the ritual, adding something deeply disturbing into the meal, along with the strange black substance from the calabash. The woman gasped, stumbling back in shock, her heart racing wildly. This is witchcraft, she whispered to herself. Without wasting a second, she ran to tell the others. And just like before, news spread quickly, too quickly. Within hours, the villagers gathered outside Kimy's house, their faces filled with anger, fear, and betrayal. They dragged her into the village square, shouting and demanding answers. The same people who had praised her, who had filled her stall every day, were now looking at her with the same hatred they once showed her mother. Kimy stood there trembling, surrounded by voices that grew louder with every second. The village elders stepped forward, their expressions serious. "Is it true?" one of them asked. "Have you been using witchcraft in your cooking?" For a moment, Kimy wanted to deny everything, to lie and protect herself. But the weight of her guilt, her fear, and everything she had done pressed down on her. She couldn't carry it anymore. Tears filled her eyes as she slowly nodded. Then, in a broken voice, she confessed everything. The witch, the ritual, the calabash, and the choice she had made out of desperation. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some shouted for punishment, others demanded justice, and many felt betrayed beyond words. To decide her fate, the elders called upon the oracle, a wise and feared woman whose judgment no one questioned. She arrived at the square, her presence silencing the crowd instantly. After listening carefully, she turned to Kimy with a stern expression. "You have committed a grave wrongdoing," the oracle said, "but you still have a choice. You may either give your womb to the witches as they demand, or you will face death for your actions." The words hit Kimy like a storm. She had already refused the witch once, but now the threat was real. Death stood right in front of her. Her body trembled as fear took hold of her completely. She wasn't ready to die. Not like this. Not yet. I choose life," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The oracle nodded slowly. "Then you will live," she said. "But you are forbidden from ever selling food in this village again. You will leave this place, and you will never return." The villagers murmured among themselves, some still angry, others satisfied that justice had been served. Broken and defeated, Kimy gathered what little she had left. The house, the wealth, the fame, it all meant nothing now. Without looking back, she walked away from the village of Asala, the same village where her mother had died, the same place where she had hoped to rebuild her life. Everything she had fought for had turned into something dark and painful. Her dream had become a nightmare, and now she was left with nothing but the consequences of her choices. The story of Kimy lived on in the village for many years, told as a warning to anyone who would listen, a reminder that chasing success at any cost can destroy even the brightest soul. And as for Kimy, she was never seen in Asala again.